I am Rabbi Michael Barclay, and welcome to the Rabbi's Table, a place of dialogue, not debate, a place where we can disagree without being disagreeable, a place where we sit down, have conversation, and see where the conversation leads with special guests, just like we'd sit down at any dinner table or breakfast table. And we've got a really interesting and wonderful man that's sitting down at our table today. Ryan Mauro is, and has been for a very long time, considered a top security consultant, security awareness guy. He's sort of an investigative journalist. He's been involved in Fox, all sorts of different shows, and yet some people also call him a conspiracy theorist. So we're going to have to kind of explore that. Does he really know national security, international security? What does that mean? We're going to talk about geopolitical situations, the political situations domestically as well as internationally, what the movements and the currents are, how we can look at these different subtle movements and maybe understand about what we need to do in our nation, in our state, in our family, in our local environment, and what we need to do in the world. So I invite you to sit back, relax, come think about it as coming to a breakfast table, because we're taping this a little earlier, and just relax, have a croissant, English tea, a coffee, a double cappuccino if you're like me, and just relax as we come and we gather together. I also want to remind you to go to any of your podcast mediums, any place that you watch or listen to your podcast. Subscribe to the Rabbi's Table, like, subscribe, and share. Check out our past episodes with people like Dinesh D'Souza, Ambassador David Friedman, all sorts of amazing people, Professor Alan Dershowitz, both conservative, liberal, all sorts of people as we sit down at a table. I want to invite everyone to come. Just take a relaxed minute right now. Close your eyes, have a little coffee, sit back at a breakfast table as we sit down here at the Rabbi's Table with Ryan Mauro, a national security consultant and expert, and see what we can learn together. Or is he actually a conspiracy theorist? Let's have some fun, and we'll be right back at the table. I've been blessed to travel all over the world. I have to be honest. One of my favorite places to go, especially with my family, is up to Reno, and specifically up to the Atlantis Resort up in Reno. It is beautiful. It's an amazing hotel, amazing restaurants. Reno's this fabulous little city. It really is the biggest little city in the world. You can go in the spring or the summer to Lake Tahoe. You can ski in the winter. Everything is up there. And I want to recommend that you go to Atlantis Casino and Resort. Go atlantiscasino.com, ATLANTIS, casino.com. Make your reservation. Spend a couple of days or a week up there. I promise you'll be happy about it. I know that I always am whenever we go up. Welcome back here to the Rabbi's Table. I'm Rabbi Michael Barclay, and we've got this great guest who's going to sit down and join us, Ryan Mauro. Ryan, thank you so much for being here and sharing some of your knowledge and wisdom and experience. So really, thank you for being here. You are a national security consultant. Is that the best way? And journalist. Is that the best way to describe you?
That or conspiracy theorist, one or the other.
Okay, cool. Well, you're embracing it, so I like that.
I'm trying to be fair and balanced.
Well, so let's get right into it, because there's so much to talk about, not just about the idea of conspiracy theories, but about what's going on, because it's been on the news for the last few days, and because of both of our histories independently of fighting the woke right. And I know you've been doing a lot of work about Candace Owens. We have a mutual friend, Karis Rea, and I know you've been doing a lot of work on the woke right. Let's just start with what do you call the woke right? James Lindsay has his definition. We all have our own definition. What do you call it briefly, and what is the danger of it?
So woke right is a true terminology that I think is accurate, but it is very broad in that it encompasses a lot of behaviors and people who might have political beliefs that aren't necessarily consciously anti-American, but still kind of fit that construct. So I personally define the threat as the global seditionist movement, consisting of three components. Without getting too in the weeds, basically seditionist left, seditionist right, and then the axis of sedition, the axis being the foreign governments that fuel a lot of this, because it really is one thing now. There's the horseshoe theory that people talk about, where the more you become radical on one side, the closer you become to the other side. I think we're actually past that now. I think it's an oval theory is necessary now. it has fused into one global seditionist movement because the differences between them are really so minor. If you examine what they believe and what they do in detail, so I put the Marxists, the white nationalists, the anarchists, the Islamists, I put all of them in one bucket now.
So let's just break it down, even make it even more simplistic. An example of the seditionist left, and I love the fact that you're using the term seditionist and all the implications that go with that. But let's just an example of seditionist left. Someone.
Well, a lot of the seditionists called themselves seditionists, so that's where I got the idea from. But the example would be like Muslim Brotherhood, Antifa, Hamas, those types.
Okay, so all of those, and I actually have my own opinion, which we'll talk about later. We can talk about Muslim Brotherhood and Islam, is whether Islam is even actually a religion. But so that's just seditionist left. Seditionist right.
Seditious right would be like Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, but then also like the Boogaloo Boys, the crazy militias. I call them basically the reactionary nationalists, those that often call themselves America first, but then when you look at what they're talking about pre-enlightenment type doctrine. And it doesn't really quite comport with America as we know it now or knew it back then.
Okay, and I'm not sure if you're aware. I think you are. I actually was the first person to call out both Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson in writing as being anti-Semites because it was so
Did
clear
you?
how
Good
messed
for
up
you.
there. Yeah, yeah, because
Yeah,
they're
it took me
so.
a while to do it because like that's such a serious accusation to make, and I always want to bend over backwards before I make it. But now, I mean, there's just no way to get around it now.
3 years ago, it was very clear for a number of different reasons for which I got canceled. Death threats, hate mail from
I
Candace
remember Candace
followers.
going after you. I
Yeah, I
do
know
remember that.
they really, because it's they are anti-Semitic. So you've got the seditionist left, where you're saying it's the Muslim Brotherhood, it's Antifa. You got the seditionist right, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens. But then you said that there's this middle group that you're saying is financing both sides.
Yeah, almost outside of them, the axis of seditions, but those would be about a dozen or so foreign governments. Yeah, I guess you could put foreign groups in there, but I was thinking of foreign governments. That if you were to make like a map, those are the ones that you would color in as being the bad guys, like Iran, Russia, China, even countries like Malaysia. Like there's a lot of countries that are part of it that you wouldn't think of, that fuel a lot of this, and you will see that the talking points that Tucker, Candace, or the seditionist left, all of them use almost always originates in these countries' state-influenced media. Like this isn't organic. It's a war of ecosystems, and we just haven't realized that people like Tucker or people like the Muslim Students Association or Students for Justice in Palestine are largely in those ecosystems, and they're reacting to the information that they live with online. It's not an organic expression. It's just we haven't adjusted to the fact that information doesn't have borders. Ideas don't have borders anymore.
Okay, I think it's easy for people to say, okay, Antifa is sponsored by somebody. The Muslim Brotherhood, obviously sponsored by whatever Islamic nation. But you're suggesting, or you're actually saying very clearly, that people like Candace Owens, whose husband is the son of a billionaire, or Tucker Carlson, who has uh, more money than he would know what to do with, that they're actually getting paid by whatever foreign powers. Am I hearing that right?
It depends on how you describe paid. I don't think it's a monetary thing because they have enough money. Although I have some questions about Candace and Farmer. I'm not so sure they have access
Really?
to George's dad's money anymore. She makes enough money herself. But who knows what their spending habits are? You really don't know. Sometimes you're amazed at how at rich people going broke, so you don't really know. But I don't think it's so much as a check, as much as it is. There's many ways you can influence these people and bribe them with them knowing it and them not knowing it. One way to do it without them knowing it is that you have your bot network, you have your troll farms. Russia, for example, had over 1,000 employees in one building, just one building, the entire troll bot apparatus they had in like 2015, 1,000 employees just every day, just doing comments and amplification stuff and picking fights online. So this is a huge thing. So you can actually pay people not even using your own money if you're a foreign government now. So if you're monetized as an influencer on social media, you get paid largely based on engagement. So if you have a foreign bot network and they like what you're doing, they're going to incentivize you to do more of certain things financially and also in terms of the dopamine hits of positive feedback through their bot networks, through their trolls, and then you're going to respond to it and say, my audience likes that, I'm going to do more of it. And here's the thing, it doesn't really cost them money except for paying for the bots and trolls, because they're getting paid through the advertisers to X. You're part of the monetization program, you're getting paid by those companies.
So just because I don't think most people understand the kind of numbers you're talking about, for a show like Tucker Carlson or Candace Owens, someone who's got 2 million views, let's say, per show, that's only a little amount of advertising, right? It's just the internet. It's actually a lot, right? And what is someone like that making because of these bots?
So I've heard numbers all that are just so it's not publicly disclosed, but I mean, let's just, to be very, very safe, let's just say tens of thousands of dollars an episode, just because we know for a fact it would be that worst case scenario. But then you get speaking engagements and book deals, and like there's a lot of other things that come with it beyond that. But just that amount, yeah. And don't, and for some of these personalities, remember how much they need to feel powerful and liked. Like the dopamine addiction that comes from this is kind of a form of a biological attack,
I actually think that's even more the issue than money. That
right?
it's
Yeah.
that vacuum in terms of vacuous hosts who really are not very intelligent. Neither Tucker or Candace are very intelligent individuals that are vacuous. That it's more about the feeding of the ego in many ways than it is other things. I'm going to want to continue this a little bit, but just to go on a side note, just for a minute because we're almost close to a break. I know you've been doing some research on Candace that's about to come out or has come out, or do you want to talk about that at all? I just know from other dialogues with other people.
Sure. So I have a lot that has come out, a lot that will be coming out on both of them. Um, that's coming around the corner. That should change some things. um, but the big thing that I've really focused on, I focus on hostile foreign influence operations and extremist propaganda. The conspiracy theory stuff is like entertaining to me, but I kind of don't care about these people that much. I care about investigating networks, and intelligence stuff is what I've studied since a young age. So that's the angle that I go at it. But the big thing I did with Candace was when she announced her little family vacation to Russia, I blew it up, because I very quickly found out it was really to go to that event that's organized by Russian intelligence, and there's all sorts
So
of other nefarious reasons I believe she did that.
so let's come back to those reasons, the woke right. We're going to deal with Hamas, Israel, Iran, the whole world, and everything as we come back after this short break, and we'll come right back here with Ryan Mauro on the Rabbi's Table.
The Jewish high holidays of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are just around the corner in mid-September, and everyone should have a place that they can go to, a community they can go to, a place to pray and be present for these important days. And so I want to invite you to come join myself, my cantors, Benny Lipson and David McGarry, our musical director, Matt Gurman, our entire Temple Ner Simcha community. Come join us for the high holidays of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. You can go register for tickets at therabbistable.com. You can register to be there live, or if you're watching this, or you're out of town and listening to this, you can go online as well and participate in the services. There's no mandatory cost, but registration is mandatory so we can keep security and everyone safe at these high holiday services. So come join me at Temple Ner Simcha. Come join me for these beautiful high holidays of Rosh Hashanah, of Yom Kippur. Welcome in this new year with joy, health, passion, and peace. Shana Tova U'Metaka. May it be a joyous and healthy new year. I hope to see you at Rosh Hashanah.
Here at the Rabbi's Table with our guest, Ryan Mauro. And you were just starting to get into Candace Owens going to Russia as part of an operation. Can we do just really brief? I don't like the idea of having a show just about a vacuous girl. So can we just very briefly, because that was kind of a teaser. Candace was going as part of a Russian op.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So, and I actually go through this in detail if I may plug it. My own podcast is called The Counter Offensive. And that's where I go through it for hours because that's how much information is here. But to summarize it, basically, most broadly, Russia's ideological offensive against the United States has been actually since 1987 and then escalated in 1997, largely based on trying to influence American Christian conservatives to promote an authoritarian version of Christianity that is pro-Russia. That's like what they're putting all gambling everything on. So that's how it is much broader than Candace, and Candace is just like one wing of that. Now, going back to 2018, the Russian influence operations, and I can prove this, began targeting Turning Point USA and other conservatives, but specifically Turning Point USA, and really zeroed in on Candace. And they actually did it with a figure who is at a senior level in the Church of Scientology, believe it or not. Sounds crazy, like it doesn't make sense, but it actually does for various reasons. But to make a long story short, the cultivation started in 2018. Your typical influence operation does take this long period of time. Her life, their behavior, her changing in views, all follows what that looks like. And then we come up to this situation most recently in late May, early June, where she announces her family vacation to Russia. And she goes there and she goes on the state media tour, where she says all sorts of peculiar Russian propaganda points, but it's like A to Z, all of them. She goes to speak at this event that Jeffrey Epstein used to be involved in. Him and his Russian assistant used to help put together with his Russian intelligence buddies. And has all these, she's on a panel for just like 7 minutes with all these Russian state propagandists, people who are sanctioned. It's this big thing, but it doesn't really answer the question of why did she go? Because the US government says to American citizens, don't go here. Like, do not, top level, do not go. And the Ukrainians hit an area near this conference with drones the morning of the event beginning. Yet she still went there with her family. I believe the reason was, aside from whatever nefarious dealings were going on at the event, because it's the most secure location outside of a Russian government office you can go to in Russia year-round. I believe she's opening up the option to take advantage of a Russian program that they have for people who are persecuted by the woke globalists in the West, where if she ever wants to flee the United States because she loses a lawsuit, she needs to hide her assets and doesn't want to pay up.
All right, I'm going to pause
Yeah.
you right there for a second, okay? Because
Yes,
I want
sure.
just very simple. Are you trying to say that your belief is Candace Owens is going to Russia so that if for whatever reason she can basically go into exile and stay there and have a great life in Russia, gets to the Russian government, and she is colluding with Russians to do that? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay.
With total confidence.
Okay. And that's why some people would say you're a conspiracy theorist. I think it's kind of interesting.
So, well, here's the thing. She didn't disclose why she was meeting with the people that handle that program.
Right. No. So let's keep going a little bit a little bit more about the woke right, okay, as opposed to just one individual. Recently, Tucker Carlson had an announcement, and I know you commented on this, and you were on Jeremy Boring's show about this. You know, Tucker Carlson made this big announcement, and everyone was thinking about it was going to be a third party. Is the woke right? I like your term. The right seditionists and the left seditionists, are they coming together to create a third party in this nation?
I think they're in the process of figuring out whether to have two parties, one to target the primary of each. Because this same conversation happened on the left, but people on the right didn't know about it because of our echo chambers. Like they just didn't have as many prominent people as you do on the right talking about it. But the same conversation happened in 2024 very loudly on the left. So I think there's an ongoing conversation of how to unify. Do you have two separate parties and then during a general election have a third party together, or do you do a joint ticket, or do you just coordinate between two parties? And that's why I think Tucker was saying probably a third party or more. That interesting uncertainty where you kind of like fell off script a little bit, where every time you would mention that indicated to me that that's part of an ongoing conversation. And you can kind of see that playing out on both sides. But operationally, I mean, they're going on each other's podcasts. The platforms are very similar. In all intents and purposes, aside from the paperwork, they are one thing now.
There's another piece, and this becomes very personal for many of us. They also unite in a hatred for Israel and a support of Islam.
Yeah.
So, what's your take? Why do they hate Israel? In your opinion? I mean, I have my own as a rabbi, and I just came back a couple of weeks from Israel, a couple of weeks ago. Why coalesce in this supporting of Islam, which wants every kafir, every infidel killed, enslaved, or converted? Supporting that, supporting Hamas, supporting all this, the craziness, Palestine, which never even existed, and at the same time, hating Israel. Why is that a nexus point for these two extreme group of, as you said, seditionists?
Well, I think and there have been actual documents from extremist groups like Muslim Brotherhood types that have said, like, this is the issue that you get everyone wrapped around. Like, this is how you radicalize the Islamic world. This is how you bring non-Muslim radicals in. A lot of this, I think, has to do with personal issues that we don't have to dive into each individual character, but you can detect what's going on with some of these. Where I think there's a lot of personal factors that come with anti-Semitism, and that's why a lot of these people become jerks. I mean, like, really, how many people become anti-Semitic and then become a nicer person? It never happens. So there's a lot of personal issues behind it, but then ideologically, if you go down the conspiratorial rabbit hole, you almost by necessity have to come against whatever you view is the powers of the Middle East. Who's the strongest power of the world? And in the Middle East, very easy to fall into anti-Semitism there, because if you believe in conspiracy theories, you have to believe that there's this all-encompassing, super villainous, evil conspiracy, and the only people that can do it are the ones that have the power to hold you back and make you not able to advance in life. And so you're going to be that's inherently anti-Western. And so then they have these different ideologies, but specifically from an influence operation perspective, the authoritarian Christianity, the czarist Christianity promoted by Russia, is pro-Islam. Like, they've adjusted it to where they have new end times prophecies that where they now preach that Russia is the catacon, which is like a Christian entity that fights an Orthodox Christian-led Christian entity that fights the Antichrist. The Antichrist is Jewish, of course, and is Israel and the U.S. and NATO and all of them. But they ally with the Mahdi, the messianic figure in Islamic end times prophecy. So the Russians have fused together Islamic end times prophecy with their own, so that they can go beyond a enemy of my enemy is my friend thing to saying, like, no, we're actually one thing.
But wait a minute. Okay, so you're saying that they're taking the Mahdi and basically making him into a Christ figure and unifying the figure, so to speak. That's fine from their
No, they're saying he's
perspective.
Islamic. Like they're saying like our prophecy is that Muslims get their Messiah. He's a good guy. He allies with us in the end times, and it's us and the jihadis against the Jewish Antichrist in the West.
Do they not realize that that's not Islam's theology? That Islam is that the Quran is a business plan for to create a political movement that its only purpose is to create a worldwide caliphate of Sharia law. Do they not get that? They may say, "Oh, we're allies," but at a certain point, Islam's going to say, well, "That's nice. Now we're going to cut your heads off." Do they not understand the theology?
Well, they do think that they can change it. And from Putin's perspective, considering like how horribly he treated Chechnya and the Muslims there, and now Chechnya is a bastion of pro-Putin jihadism, the fact that even exists, I can kind of see why he would think he can just change it however he wants. But to them, they would say, well, at least until the Battle of Armageddon, whenever that happens, we are prophetically allied. Worry about the rest later.
Okay, so we got that whole side that you now got the right sedition, the left sedition that are supporting Hamas, etc. The Palestinian state, again, for many articles of the fact there is no historical Palestine doesn't exist, no nation, king, language, culture, tax, or flag or currency, but they're all supporting all of this. So, forgetting about what the left says, what the right says. What is the uncomfortable truth in this last bit of time of this segment? What is the uncomfortable truth about Israel, Iran, Hamas, Hezbollah, that nobody, in your mind, that nobody in America really wants to hear?
Let's say the two-legged stool is number one. The massive repercussions people like yourself and I face for talking about this, since people will say, "Oh, you're trying to grift off Candace or whatever." Like I'm terrified about my finances. Like I've been punished a lot over the years, and I've been talking about this coming since like 2009, 2010. Like, it's been a vicious trip for me. But that is the sickness of American civil society that results in you being punished for talking about this is something I think most Americans don't get. But then the other element is that there's a really good chance the bad guys win. There really is, because they only need, through a third party or an allied few parties, if they just get 10, 15% of the vote, and they can claim to determine the outcome of elections, you're going to have every money-hungry consultant whose job depends upon winning elections saying, we need to make a compromise. And at that point, they own the system. They don't have to win elections.
So we're going to come back to that a little bit after this break. I will tell you, I only disagree with you because I have faith in God. So
Right.
they may win a battle. They're not going to win the war. I have total faith in that.
Well,
And we're
sure.
going to talk more about this and other topics with our special guest, Ryan Mauro, as we're here at the Rabbi's Table when we come back in just a moment after this break.
As we all know, there's been a war going on in Israel for over 2 years. And one of the places that's doing so much healing and so much work is the Bnei Zion Hospital in Haifa in Israel. They're one of the top rehab facilities in the world, and where all of the victims from the north go, and many from other places throughout the country, go up to Bnei Zion in Haifa. They built a nuclear-proof bunker and put a hospital inside of it. They finished that project in July of 23, and then the war started with Hamas terrorizing and kidnapping and killing so many people on October 7th, and it's been horrible since then. Today, we have this war going on with Iran and Hezbollah, where all these wounded are going to Bnei Zion Hospital, and the hospital needs your help. The hospital needs to raise funds so they can provide more facilities. They can provide more medicine, more healing for the many people, Jews, Christians, Catholics, Druze, Muslims, all the people who have been bombed, hurt, injured. We need to help them, and you can make a difference. And I really want to invite you to. Go to healthcareforisrael.org. That's healthcareforisrael.org. Make a donation. I'm a rabbi, but rarely can I say that I've been involved in saving someone's physical life. When I've made donations to this hospital, when I've raised money for the hospital, that money goes directly and saves human lives. Rarely can any of us say that we've done that. I am begging you, I am pleading with you, please go to Healthcare for Israel. Save some lives. Every dollar, every dime that you donate is both tax deductible, but every dime goes straight to the hospital for its good work. Again, that's Healthcare for Israel. Support Israel by doing this. Support Bnei Zion Hospital. Support humanity and make a difference by healing and saving lives.
So welcome back to the Rabbi's Table. And we're here with Ryan Mauro, our guest. Ryan, this is actually my favorite section. This is only for the podcast. It's not on the radio show that's syndicated every week. It's only for the podcast, and which is why people should sign up for the podcast. And this is always a little bit more interesting to me because we're not on the same kind of clock. We're not having the producer whisper in our ears, okay, you have 10 seconds, that kind of stuff. You were just mentioning that you have had struggles for over a decade for putting this kind of material out, talking about things, taking on the dragons of these influencers, pointing out these foreign government movements. And you've taken a lot of heat for it. You've had a lot of challenges financially and in other ways. So I had a really simple question for you. Why do it? Why do you do what you do? And I think it's always good. Let me rephrase the question in one sentence, then we can explore it more. One sentence. Why does Ryan Mauro do what you do?
I'll give you one acronym, OCD. I can't do anything else. Here's the thing. I can give you this self-righteous answer that everybody wants to hear, but I can also give you the real honest one, which is that but due to different difficulties in my life, like this is literally kind of the only thing I've done. I have no other hobbies. Like this is kind of it. So so there isn't really a choice to not do this. I've been doing it since I was a kid. I started professionally when I was a teenager. That's when my career began. So I don't have a choice. And at this point, the amount of career limitations that you get, because there's places that just don't want to fill, even if they like you, like who wants to take on the, get involved in a possible controversy, it kind of limits your options.
So what you're basically saying is we got to find you a wife, get married, and have kids so you have other interests.
Well, one that's rich. That's the primary concern right now, because like I have a nonprofit and I do consulting work for different places, and I prefer that so that I can speak freely as myself. But no matter what, if I'm working for a more left wing client, like they don't want me going after left wing people. If it's a right wing one, they don't want me going after right wing people, and they're like, oh, as soon as like we get attached to that, we have to let you go. So every day it's like I have some tribalist like nightmare in my brain going like, all right, what do I do if I don't have a paycheck tomorrow because people care more about their political party than they care about objective morality?
So when I have those kind of questions, when I deal with any of those kind of issues, and I've had a lot of different types of hate thrown at me than you have. My answer is faith. Okay, my answer is we do what we need to do because we're doing right in righteousness. We're doing the right thing. If we do our part, God does God's part. And it may or may not be so effortless. It may or may not be so easy. We can pray that it will be. But my answer is, I believe in perfect faith in certain things. And one of them is that there is this God. I don't think he's a puppet master, obviously, but I have faith. That's my safety net. What's your safety net?
Faith plays a big part of it. I didn't grow up in a faith-based household at all, but I started going to church when I was like 11 or 12, and that's actually what first got me into this stuff. The timing was it was the right timing. I actually did a documentary related to biblical history and biblical archaeology in the Middle East. So that's something I've been involved in and really quite enjoy. And it's kind of come together in this. Like it gave me the objective morality I need to be able to see some of these things, and it's also given me the conviction where if everyone was doing what I did and saying it in the way that I felt works best for what I'm trying to achieve in my narrow sense, I, I'd be thinking elsewhere. Like I care so much about impact, so it's not so much about, oh, I just have an opinion and want it out there. It's that the information I'm finding, I'm not seeing anywhere else. The conclusions I'm not seeing anywhere else, and that's true of many people. Like there's many people doing unique things. So it's not about exalting myself, but when you realize that what you're doing, your methodology is resulting in unique things that no one else is doing, and there isn't someone you can immediately hand it off to, it makes it easier to go through the rough parts, to go through the consequences, because it's not just about, oh, I have an opinion and I said it and there's a negative consequence. It's like, no, the consequence isn't just what happens to me. There's a consequence also if I don't do it.
There is. And most people don't realize that there's a huge consequence if we don't do the piece of repairing the world that we're supposed to be doing. It's a consequence to our soul, to our family, to the world. All right, so you go to your church going kind of guy. You were or are, but you're steeped in a Christian theological perspective, right?
Yep.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
I couldn't hear you. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Okay. So in your mind, with all that you know about these different things, and we're looking at a right seditionist, left seditionist coming down, and the middle being sponsored by whatever organizations. Is this a fight of good and evil?
Undeniably. I have not seen. I used to have trouble saying the word evil or the word demonic, because in my hyper rational sense, it's abstract enough. I just didn't like saying it. It didn't seem real to me. Ever since October 7th, though, and seeing what has happened to people, especially with the overnight transformation of some people, and seeing how not just their beliefs rapidly changed, but their behaviors changed. Like they changed as people. I can't attribute that to anything but some type of spiritual influence. And honestly, I would say that that was an atheist. I've met atheists that say that to me now. Uh, so something's going on with that. And then ideologically, how I'm seeing the forces of evil unify the jihadist ideologies of different kinds with the authoritarian Christianity of Vladimir Putin, with the Church of Scientology, and it's all coming together in a way that is somewhat seamless. Like it's more tangible than a partnership. And I'm seeing how many people in my own life are falling to it I never thought would. I mean, that's part of what drives me too, is I can't believe what I'm seeing all around me, not just politically, but there's people who were my allies in this struggle that now have compromised with anti-Semites, and are going down the rabbit hole I never thought I would see.
I'll share two different guest comments they made. I think you'll appreciate them. One was Alex Marlowe, who was asking just lightning round, give your opinion on this pundit, etc. Ben Shapiro, brilliant. Just brilliant. Candace Candace Owens, she's possessed by a demon. She's demonic. Was Marlowe's comment. But the other one that I got to tell you that really gave me a lot of hope is Professor Alan Dershowitz, who has
Is that
been
right?
the bulwark of liberalism in this nation for 70 years, and who has left all of that because he saw that it was evil, that it had the evil of anti-Semitism being institutionalized in it. Dershowitz realized that it is now evil, and he moved out of the Democratic Party. That's rare because I don't know about you, but it sounds like you're having the same experience I am, which is a lot of people that we resonated to for years are now saying, oh, well, I can put up with anti-Semitism. I can put up with some hate and some evil in order to get this. So are you finding
Yeah,
that all over?
yeah. Sometimes it's money, sometimes it's fear, sometimes just ecosystem capture. That I'm finding it's just they follow certain accounts and they follow more. Then next thing you know, you look at if you're assessing someone, look at the accounts they follow on social media. It'll tell you a lot. If you don't see diversity there, you shouldn't have much trust in them. If they're actively choosing to put themselves in an echo chamber, especially one that's anti-Semitic, that's a choice. That's someone you should be leery of. Maybe they say some things that you can benefit from, but you should certainly be leery of them, more so than someone that with a diverse thing. But also, I think there's a certain pride in being able to say, no matter what you hear, I understand that. I understand that. And instead of just saying, no, that's just 100% crap. That's 100% evil. There's just this people. A lot of people just take this pride in being like, oh well, I can kind of see their point. I see the legitimacy, and it's like, no, no, you might be able to see some facts if they have any, but the whole thing can be evil and worthy of dismissal. But I think ecosystem capture. I think that seems to be the biggest factor right now. Is people going down the rabbit hole, and then the algorithms just capture them, and they can't climb out of it. That seems to be the biggest thing to me.
Yeah, it's interesting because Western culture, specifically America, has so tried to destroy the concept and say there is no evil. There's only mistakes. Okay. Well, if there's no evil, there's also no good.
Yeah.
And um, Western culture really has pushed, especially America, the secularism, which seems like, I guess your secularism would be on the left side of the seditions, right? Um, but that
Yeah.
secularism to become, it's sort of like you say, as an oval. The secularism of America has now merged with, it's moved into the progressive socialist agenda, and then right into Islam, which that is so inherently contradictory to everything that secularism, liberalism is about, and yet they are supporting it. How do you explain gay Jews for Palestine?
Right. Well, I can tell you what their propaganda is in response to that very obvious criticism everyone thinks of. Their argument is they'll say, well, Israeli bombs don't discriminate. So surely they kill the gay people that are in Gaza. So that's a bigger threat to the gay people in Gaza than
There are no
Hamas.
gay people in Gaza.
They would disagree. They say, well, then they're in the closet, but I'd rather them be in the closet and alive, hiding from Hamas, than blown up by the evil Israeli bombs that are massacring the civilians. That's
Yeah,
that's kind of the mindset.
we're
Yeah.
going to come into Israel, I think, in the last segment a little bit, but Israel didn't respond. I think it was for 10 days to October 7th, and there were already demonstrations on October 8th and 9th, demonstrating in this country about Israel committing genocide and bombing Hamas.
They announced them by the end of October 7th. I did a study that was probably the biggest study of the entire anti-Israel protest network in the country for a group called Capital Research Center. It was this huge study. But that was one of the conclusions I found that was so surprising, was that by the end of the day of October 7th, they had already announced protests against genocide and things like that. And they used the same graphics they were using anyway. And so many people thought it was a reaction to Israeli retaliation. Like, no, they used literally the same graphics and the same language they already been using. You just found out about it because you were paying attention that day.
And we had people like Mondami's wife cheering it on, and all sorts of people
Yes.
cheering it on. And I can forgive everything and anything. I'm not that holy.
Right.
I cannot forgive people who were cheering on and supporting October 7th.
Yeah.
I'm not that holy. What was done is horrible. And similarly with September 11th, with 9/11, what was done was so horrible. So we're going to come back and deal and talk a little bit more when we get back to the radio segment about Israel and these kind of things. But before we do, you said this is a war between good and evil. What do we need to do to win that war?
I think each person needs to ask themselves what they do each day that can help, whether it's donations to nonprofits that are involved in this, or it's a contact, sometimes making an introduction for people. It can be activism. It can be donating skills or time. But there's just a million things that people do on a day-to-day basis that they just don't apply to the cause that they can do when they're on their phone sitting on the toilet. It's just a matter of constantly being in that mindset of how do I improve the world around me and make it better for the good guys and worse for the bad guys. So I can get specific, but I don't think we need to. Let people be creative. Just get in the right mindset, and you'll do miracles.
You say we'll do miracles. There's a great teaching from Rabbi Nachman 150 years ago that if we think of our finger and a laser beam, let's say, going out a million miles, and we only move our finger 1 degree, it doesn't move very much. But a million miles out there, it moves a lot. And when we do one good deed, the effect in the spiritual world, which will then manifest in the physical world, that one good deed makes a difference. Whether it's giving a piece of charity, whether it's even just sitting and when someone is homeless and asking them, "What's your name?" that it actually makes a difference.
Yeah.
So, all right. So look, we're going to come back to finish this podcast segment, go back to the radio show part and the podcast part, and talk a little bit more. I wish we had 4 hours to just sort of hang and talk, and talk a little bit more about uh, your knowledge and understanding geopolitically the Middle East, because that's obviously so much in the news and constantly, and what's going on. A little bit more about who Ryan Mauro is and why you do what you do and how well you do it. Um, and again, people can support you by going to your website, which is
RyanMauro.com and so my name on social media, wherever.
okay. So we're going to come back and sort of go to this little break and talk some more about Ryan Mauro, the world, and what we can do. We'll be right back here at the Rabbi's Table.
One of the greatest places that I know of to go to, whether it's for a day, a week, or even a little longer, is a vacation up in Reno, specifically at the Atlantis Resort and Casino in Reno. It's amazing up there, and it's a little gem of Reno that is often just ignored. I go up there with my family. There's wintertime skiing. There's summertime at the Lake Tahoe. And the Atlantis Resort and Casino is an amazing place to stay. Not only are the rooms beautiful, amazing views, but some of the restaurants are the best restaurants in the country, the Napa Bistro, different places that you can eat. There's an indoor pool. So you can go skiing in the morning and then go swimming in the afternoon. I really want to recommend to you to check out the Atlantis Resort. It's at atlantiscasino.com. That's atlantiscasino.com, Atlantis casino.com. It's up in Reno. I promise you, and I've been there, I promise you, you're going to have an amazing time. You won't be able to wait till you get back. Go visit it. Go see Reno. It's the greatest little city in the world. Go have some fun at the Atlantis.
At the Rabbi's Table with our guest, Ryan Mauro. Ryan, you were just talking about a little bit, we were talking about Iran and Hamas, and Israel, and in the podcast segment, which I encourage people to listen to or watch by going to the Rabbi's Table, or you can even dial 250, say, find my podcast, say Rabbi's Table, and we'll just go right to your phone as well. We're talking a little bit about some of these uncomfortable truths. So based on the dialogue we've had, especially in that podcast segment, you are a man who believes in compassion, who tries to be compassionate and good. True?
I try to be, yes.
If you had to choose between just completely destroying Hamas, not defeating, destroying Hamas, and or choose between that and accepting a Palestinian state. Those are your two choices. Which would you choose, and why?
You destroy Hamas. Easy,
Why?
easy choice.
Why?
Because whatever Palestinian entity you create will be controlled by Hamas anyway, or a group like it. So whatever you think you're avoiding, you're going to get 10 times of.
And I believe, and I've written about the fact that Hamas identified themselves as Amalek when they did what they did October 7th, and they are not to be defeated. We're commanded to destroy them. But that has a follow-up question then. Can you destroy Hamas and not create another generation devoted to attacking Israel? Can that even be done?
I think so. These ideologies are bad ideas. So how are they sustained? Aside from the religious fervor and everything, but even how is that sustained? It's through schools. It's all through infrastructure. It's all through state support. So very often we talk about these as being non-state threats. I think we've overcomplicated it. State governments are responsible for their territory and what goes on there, and territory is used to create, foment, and sustain these horrible ideas that would not sustain themselves naturally because they're terrible and they have terrible results. Plus, also in Islamic ideology, there is some level of diversity within the Muslim world and battles between different jihadists and how they interpret things. One of the interesting things I found out, and I've seen real results from, is that there's a huge radicalization when they think that they're successful, because it means God is blessing them in their interpretation. So the debate's over. But when they lose, it means that they have fallen out of God's favor overall. Like not just what they're doing, like overall, that means that they have moved further away from Allah. And that's what every devout Muslim wants. You want to be closest to the ones that are closest to Allah. And so if you demonstrably beat them over and over again, you deny them any results, ideologically, even their supporters at some point have to say, well, I guess they're full of sin. Why is it that Allah is blessing, I don't know if blessing would be the right word, but is not blessing us in our fight against the infidel anymore? Where do we go wrong? And so that's very useful, I think.
So, challenge with that though is the flip side is we need to become more extremist. Allah has left his support of the building. So to bring him back, we have to really, really, really embrace the Quran and the Hadiths.
Yeah, right.
Which, I mean, that is the other side of it. They don't just sort of back off. They come back even more passionate all too often.
That does happen. Not always, though.
So, well, let's live in place that it's happening. Okay.
Sure.
Iran. Okay. Look, my opinion is that we should have finished this a year and a half ago. And I'm ironically not a hawk. I'm a dove. I just recognize that there are only limited choices, and the goal of war is peace, not victory. What should we do today in August of 2026? Ryan Mauro is now in charge of all of our foreign policy and our actions. And we've got this going. Iran saying that they've been winning. They control the Strait of Hormuz. We know that every day they're developing more nuclear weapons in Pickaxe Mountain. They're doing all of this, right? So, I mean, I'm not even a security specialist, and I know that. So I can't imagine the details. What does Ryan Mauro say? This is what we should do, because if they're holding Strait of Hormuz as hostage, they will with a nuclear bomb. What should we do? You're in charge. Tell us what to do.
The biggest lever I would say would be supporting and even making it sound as if you're more powerful than you actually are when it comes to covert ops, but supporting the Iranian people, taking that off the table, having the memorandum of understanding where we even suggested we could be convinced not to interfere in their internal relations, which means not support the Iranian people who we encouraged to rise up and said we would avenge. Like there's a lot of mistakes with the language, tactical mistakes. Right now, the strategy of Trump, I believe it's something that a lot of people are missing, but I think it makes sense actually to slow roll it right now. Like that part strategically makes sense. The stuff in between, the back and forth makes sense. But the stuff that we're like kind of agreeing to, sort of not agreeing to, the language around it, saying, "Oh, regime change has been accomplished," when it hasn't. All that's horrible mistakes. But the bigger picture of the strategy of waiting and gearing up for round 2 next year, that I'm kind of on board with. That I think makes the most pragmatic sense.
Okay, but I'm going to push back on that for a second. You and I both agree that Iran is developing more weapons every day. True?
Trying to, yes.
Okay, so do you feel that and every day they get closer? So we waited out till after the midterm elections. That's the strategy I'm hearing from you, and in the beginning of 2027. So we're talking 4 months effectively. Isn't that giving them even more opportunity? I mean, I've certainly read certain reports that they are better armed and closer right now than they were a year ago in June when we went to war. You're nodding your head, so you've heard the same thing.
I've heard it, I don't believe it. I think that there's different trajectories. So there is a certain trajectory of, is Iran repairing missile sites and stuff? Of course, yeah, absolutely. So that's a negative trajectory. But then you have to compare that to the negative trajectories that they have, not just the positive ones. Economically, the military not being paid, and then the positive ones that we and our allies have, which is reducing dependence on the Strait of Hormuz, so that they lose that card. Us building up our defenses, so that we can take them on in a stronger position next year. I mean, the longer we wait, at least until next year, I mean, then we're going to be in a position where they are weaker and we are stronger. So if I want less bloodshed and less costs on my side, that would seem to make a lot of sense to do. And also there has to be a lot of intelligence gathering, because I do think there's a genuine power struggle going on within the regime. It's bad guy versus bad guy, so let's not kid ourselves about what we're dealing with. But it does take time to do damage assessments and try to figure out who actually controls what, because no matter who you listen to, especially including your spies that you have in there, they're all going to be claiming they control things, and you're not going to really know who does. So I think a lot of that it's a bit of a game of saying, like, well, what does the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps control versus the Supreme National Security Council and Parliament? Because everybody claims to control everything.
So, okay, let's talk about control. Just recently, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, and Turkey created the Mecca Accords, as they phrased it, an Islamic NATO, and Turkey has the missiles. Pakistan has over 170 warheads. We have these Mecca Accords now. How does that play into who's controlling what? And Erdogan, as we know, is crazy and wants a worldwide caliphate that's run out of Turkey. How does this Mecca Accord, briefly, how did this Mecca Accord of Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey come into play, this new entity? How does it work into this whole world with Iran, Israel, etc.?
Think it only has viability when it comes to countering Iran. I don't think that's one that sticks together. And the prize there is bringing Pakistan over, because Pakistan sometimes had beef with Iran, but not fully. Like, Iran had planes and stuff in Pakistan. They're certainly both more radical Islamic on the anti-American side. So bringing Pakistan over to the more the anti-Iran bloc makes sense. And there's also a lot of reports that indicate those other countries, aside from the Saudis and the UAE, are also going to help take on the Houthis, which is a big thing, because our one of our big fears is that the Bab al-Mandeb Strait, with the Gulf of Aqaba, that they're going to shut that down. And Iran also fired a drone at the Suez Canal of Egypt. So Iran's ability to cause economic catastrophe is still greater than what we've seen. So I think it makes sense to minimize the threat from the Houthis and the Iranian ability to attack the Suez Canal, attack that other side of the Arabian Peninsula, before going at it again, and then hopefully having a better result.
So you don't see it as potentially the beginnings or the seeds of a worldwide Islamic alliance, Sunni alliance, but a worldwide Sunni Muslim alliance. You're not concerned about that.
I'm concerned it could turn into that. I don't think with the current government it necessarily would. But what if the Saudi government fell? Like, what if the Wahhabis took over? Now you're dealing with that. So there is danger.
Okay, so look, I think that there's a lot of information that you've shared and a lot of knowledge that you've shared on all of this, and you're if people are not impressed by the breadth of your knowledge in so many different arenas, they should be.
Thank you.
So I really want to do that. Every person who comes on and I sit at a table with, I ask a question to, because I think it's something we should look at for ourselves and look at for other people and be able to identify. At the end of the day, at the beginning of the day, all day, one word, one phrase that defines Ryan Mauro.
I'm tempted to say peace, but I feel like there's something a little bit more muscular than that. I guess I got to go with peace for a lack of a better word. But to me, peace means standing up to the bullies.
So peace through strength, peace through faith.
I could go with that, or I'm tempted to say anti-tribalism, since it seems like that seems to be the common thread between all of this, right? Is that narrow-minded tribalism? So,
You have this journey, this work, and God bless you for what you're doing, for the writing you're doing. I know that because of conversations I've had, I know that you have some other new stuff about to come out about Tucker Carlson, about Candace Owens, about George Farmer, about Candace Owens and George Farmer's escapades. You have all sorts of things coming out. And so people really should take the time, the effort, the energy to follow you, to like, to share, to subscribe, to support you in whatever way. How can people reach out to you? In an easy way and support the work that you're doing and learn more, learn what you're sharing, gain that kind of knowledge and information. How can they do that?
thank you for saying all that. RyanMauro.com, and then on social media, either Real Ryan Mauro or Ryan Mauro, and you can
And
subscribe
that's
for my updates.
Mauro, Mauro.
Yes, thank you. Mauro. And I have my nonprofit, the Mauro Institute, if people want to help me continue doing this, since it is always in question, but thank God I haven't had to stop yet. So I'm praying that continues.
You just said thank God and thank you as well. Thank God for everything, and thank you for coming and sitting down and just having some nice dialogue. Again, please support Ryan and the work that he's doing. It's important work. It's important knowledge. It's important information. And maybe there's some conspiracy theory in there too, but
Yeah.
that they really do support you. I thank you so much. Thank you for sitting down. We'll see you at the Rabbi's Table. We got one more brief segment. We'll be right back here at the Rabbi's Table. If you like what you're seeing and hearing at the Rabbi's Table, I invite you to subscribe and to follow us on any of your podcast mediums, Spotify, iHeart, Apple, whatever it is. You can just follow us. You'll get all the latest information, special information from us, special segments of podcasts. You can also go to pound 250. You can go on your cell phone, dial pound 250. When the recording comes up, say, find my podcast. It will ask you what podcast, say the Rabbi's Table. And from then on, you will always get our podcast, our show, directly to your phone. So I invite you to sit with me, with our guests, with the different icons, and join us by being part of the podcast, part of the group, part of the community at the Rabbi's Table. So we're here for the last part of the Rabbi's Table of this episode. And, in the Talmud, it says we should always end words with words of teaching, words of spirituality, words of Torah. That's how we should end conversations between friends, between any kind of conversations. That's why we always have this brief segment with some sort of Torah teaching or some sort of spirituality to it. Ryan Mauro is an expert with words, and yet, as he said, he's a warrior of peace. He believes peace through strength. The book of Deuteronomy, fifth book of the Torah of the Bible. The actual name in Hebrew is Devarim, which means both words, but it also means things, because Judaism recognizes, our sages recognize, that words are more than just esoteric. They're not just ethereal. They have meaning, they have substance, they have power. So much so that when there's a fight, a discussion between the sages of the Talmud, they use the word milchama, which means war. The debate is not just words, a war of words. It's literally war. It makes a difference. When we choose to use our words carefully, they are as or more powerful than any weapon. If you don't believe that, this guy named Jesus, 12 disciples, used words and spread it around the world. Similarly, this guy named Muhammad used words and violence and then spread it around the world as well. What are the words that you want to use? How can the words that we use be words that fight the war for good? How can we personally, individually, and collectively use our words as a tool to make the world a better place? If we all pause for just a moment before we use them, maybe they'll be more precise. Maybe they'll be more powerful. Maybe they'll make a difference. My prayer for all of us, and that's why we have this dialogue at the Rabbi's Table, which again, I invite you to subscribe, to like, to share, to give those ratings. But it's so important what we say and how we say it. Thank you for sharing this table with me today. I look forward to seeing you next week. You can archive shows as well. You have great guests, and we'll see you soon here at the Rabbi's Table.